This old house is made possible by a grant from Owens Corning Fiberglass Corporation, manufacturers of residential building products.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila. Welcome to This Old House. As you can see, we've had a couple of feet of snow around here, but that hasn't slowed us down too much. Norman's crew has gotten the new entry area finished and closed in. As a matter of fact, there's the red door that used to be on the front of the house, firmly in place in its new location. Today we're going to be giving you a tour of that interior space and the new living space. And we're also going to be looking at the bathroom that I was framing last week. We've got that finished and we've got the roughing done, the rough plumbing done. And today we'll be installing a prefab shower stall in that bathroom. We're also going to be showing you or giving you a brief demonstration of how to hang sheetrock. And today I'm sure that we'll be able to get back outside and look at Norman's crew starting the roofing job on this entryway. We're going to wait till a little bit later and we get the snow off the roof. And last week we ran out of time to show you a little bit about steaming wallpaper off the walls, but I promise we'll get back to that today. But let's get started by going around the back of the garage a minute, because there's a real neat view on that side. We'll take a good look inside in just a minute, but I wanted you to admire all the new thermal glass panels that have been put in place over here. These, of course, are all operating windows, and the ones on the roof, which have a light snow dusting on it, will be fixed. If you take a look over here, we've already gotten our big picture window that we salvaged from the front of the house firmly in place, and most of the shingling work around it has been done. It got a little bit too cold, so we haven't quite finished it. Then, you know, on this side of the garage, there will be a set of patio doors, and then another large glass window here, so that we're going to have a lot of sunlight from this south side coming into all the living space. You know, although to most people the garage kind of still looks the way it did when we first came out here, there has been a lot of work done. One major thing that has not been accomplished is the floor. We're still standing on the concrete floor that the car used to sit on, and we'll be raising that up and putting a plywood deck over it and insulating the space. And then, of course, we're going to have less ceiling height. So one of the things that has been done already is that Norm's crew moved all the collar ties up 2 feet to create more ceiling height. The collar ties are the flat timbers that run from one rafter to the other and hold them tight. They make kind of like the letter A. And if we didn't have those, we could lose our roof in a heavy snow load. But anyway, that was a good deal of work that's already been accomplished. And if you remember, the last time we were here, we had a full wall running around this end of the garage, which of course held up the outside end of the roof. Well, what he's done here is he's replaced the wall with this beam that runs the full width of the opening that we've got here. And all of these rafter ends were cut back to meet it, and then each one of them has a metal hanger on it, so that we've got all that weight on this header. A header is basically a timber that runs horizontally in all cases and transfers a load. If you've got the weight of this roof, which we'll call the load, resting on a wall here, and you want to get rid of the wall, what you need to do is put up a header to take it. And of course, the header always has something on either side, like a column, which we call a post, transferring that weight down to the floor. So that's been done, and that was, you know, that took a lot of energy. That was a lot of work to do. But now you start to get a sense of the space, the open space that we've got coming into our new transition area. I'm tempted at this point to start calling it a greenhouse almost, because if you see what we were looking at from the outside, we've got these fantastic thermal windows in place, as well as on this south side of the ceiling. Believe it or not, we'll show you at some other point, these windows are thermal, but we will be putting an actual Venetian blind in between the two pieces of glass so that we can control the light in here as well as create some privacy. And of course, the floor, which was the first thing we did, will be collecting all of that sunlight that comes in here and acting as a heat sink. It'll always be a warm floor. We will put quarry tile on top of it to make it more attractive. Then you saw me start the program and the tour by going out this door, which is our old front door. It's in its new location. We've started to frame in right here for a coat closet, which we'll hopefully finish up in the next couple of days. And this is a good spot to point out that we're not having a flat ceiling here, of course, and what's going to make it a very interesting space is that we'll end up having a kind of a cathedral ceiling over here with this angled section coming all the way around over to here. To the right side of the door, where I'm leaning up against, there's a piece of plywood at the moment, but we will be installing another plate glass window in here so that you'll always be able to take a look right out and see who's knocking at your door. And, of course, I'm in the area where the work hasn't been finished, but it's pretty far along. Remember, this is going to be the connection to the dining room, so that eventually we'll have one big flow of space. What we have to do on this side, needless to say, is to build a couple of steps. And they'll probably also be done in quarry tile, and we'll hopefully have a nice handrail going on it. We've still left the plastic up here temporarily because we're heating that, the other side of the wall. But we already are at the point, we've reached the point where we can start to tear it down, because a lot of the work on the inside of this room has been done. We took down the plasterboard that was on the inside, and we've torn out the window that was there. And we would have loved to have just knocked out this whole window in one fell swoop so that we could provide you with a little bit of drama. But I was afraid of getting hurt, so I decided to cut it up in sections. What we've been using is what's known as a reciprocating saw, which is like a giant saber saw that just cuts right through all these old boards in a matter of moments. Let's have a little fun right now and make the couple of last cuts that have to be made, and then we'll start taking this thing down in sections. We already took the boards that were up here out, and we're going to go down for about 2 feet. Goes right through the knots without much problem, as long as you've got a sharp blade on it. Now, I've already cut the posts up at the top, and now it's just a question of pulling the thing apart. We had to make probably about a dozen cuts to get it ready to go. I think one of our cuts wasn't completed. Bear with me at the camera end. Try not to step on any nails. And if I've cut the bottom of these out the way I thought I had, this piece should just go right in. This might kick up a little dust. But anyway, now you've got it. You can see just what kind of living space we're going to end up here, over 30 feet from the far end of the living room to in here. And of course, we still have one section of wall that should be already cut out, ready to go. Yeah, all the way to the bottom. The only thing holding this in place is the toenails down here at the bottom of the studs. Oh, great, we didn't damage our windows. How do you like it? It's a new sense of space. We'll probably have a low railing wall along here, just so that you don't fall over the side. And of course, the steps down will be right here. And one thing I'm really happy we did was moving this picture window from the front end of the house over to what's now a wonderful new dining space, because you can just picture the dining table in the middle of the room and that fantastic view into the wooded lot back there. Well, let's take a breather now. I want to show you what Rich Fathui has been doing in the new master bathroom with a shower stall we're going to look at. Hi, Richard. How you doing?
Not too bad, Bob.
What are you working on right now?
Just putting the finishing touches on the shower valve. The last 3 connections, copper connections that I've got to make on this roughing in.
Let's see. That's the hot, and that's the cold, and this is the mixer.
All right. Comes up to the shower head and out.
What are the tricks of the trade to getting those copper pipes together?
What you got to do is have both the surfaces of the pipe and of the adapter very clean.
Uh-huh.
For the pipe, I would start by cleaning it with an emery cloth, so it's very clean, just a fine grit emery cloth. Inside the adapter with a wire brush that cleans it. And then I've got to apply some flux. Now flux actually prepares the surface for bonding with the solder that we're going to apply and removes all oxidation. Now here, we push that down in.
As far as it'll go.
We're ready to solder. Now, one of the tricks is that we can actually make solder go uphill.
Oh, now that sounds like a nice circus act. Let's see you do it.
And you can see by putting the heat above where you want the solder to go, by capillary attraction, you can draw that solder uphill.
Capillary attraction, you called it. Sounds medical, huh?
It'll actually be drawn towards the heat. And we wait for that flux to bubble a bit. And we wait a little longer.
And sometime tomorrow, it should
Yeah.
start going up.
And here we go.
There you are.
Be sure you fill that in all the way around. And there's that one. We can continue up. What you should always do after you do it is to wipe the joint clean. Doesn't look too bad. This one here is the same idea. You touch the solder to the opposite side of the heat.
Why is that, Richard?
Well, this would be the hottest point. You wouldn't want to. You'd want it to.
You'd want it not to melt right away.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. These adapters are a little heavier, so they take a little longer than an elbow would or some of the other smaller fittings.
The bronze adapter, you mean? Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Get all
number
around
2.
it there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just pulls it together in an instant.
And the last one here.
That one should be easier. I know capillaries involved. It's just going downhill.
Yeah, a little gravity on this one. All right, another second, and we should have this one. All right. And we just wipe that. Okay.
Okay, well, Richard, I'll get back to work on this shower stall. First thing I did this morning, I set the base down and made sure it was level. And then I put a bead of this waterproof caulking material all along the perimeter on all 3 sides, so that now I'm ready to install the back wall of it and then the 2 side walls. You've probably done this a couple of 100 times, Richard, but if you see me doing anything wrong, give me a hint.
Just want to set that right down into the
Right
bead.
into the groove,
There you
right?
go. Yep.
Good. All right, then all it needs at this point is about 1 screw in the middle.
Just to hold it in. Sure.
This is a Yankee screwdriver, and it comes in pretty handy when you're doing stuff like this. Okay. There, that's on solid. Now, the only one that's got me worried is this one right here.
On this side wall.
Yeah, this business. You see, I drilled a little pilot hole earlier today, figuring, measuring up and so forth, and I'm hoping that it's going to fall right in place, Richard. I've got it over here.
Did you
I measured several times, yeah. And what I thought I would do after I drilled that pilot hole, I realized you need about a 3-inch diameter hole there, right?
Right, to accommodate that shower
So
valve,
I
sure.
was going to use my old saber saw, and I was going to jump right in there and do a circular motion and cut that hole out, because I just don't have a hole cutter big enough.
How much did you pay for this bar?
For the shower?
Yeah, for this shower.
It's about $300.
And you're going to be sure that you measured it right? If you've got the right hole...
You think I might crack it with this?
Yeah. Well, you can do it your way, or you can do it my way.
Well, how long is it going to take you? Why don't we try it?
About 20 seconds, maybe.
All right.
And we've got this lined up.
That's a very professional-looking hole.
Since we had it, we might as well have used it. Huh?
Nothing like having the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
That took about 20 seconds, so I'll just divide $25 an hour by 20 seconds, and I'll owe you about 40 cents,
We'll
right?
work that out somehow.
Now, before I can put this in, I was about to forget, I've got to add more of that sealant over here. What I've got to do is get the nail out of the thing and go all the way along this groove, I believe, because we don't want any possibility of water leaking through.
Right, where that butts right
Anywhere along the thing, yeah. I'll get back to that one.
Yeah. You don't really have to overdo it because it's such a tight connection right here, and you can wipe up the overage, certainly, so there's no...
Well, at least it's white.
Yeah, it
Okay.
matches. Okay.
The main thing and the drama here is the hole going to line up in the
Will it line up?
right place?
Just get it in the track first. There we go. No, you down, bud. There we go. Slide it right in. You're just not in.
Yeah, I'm not in on the top track is the problem. There. There we go.
There we go. Now what that does, you know, if we had been a little bit errant in our drilling, which we weren't, this cover plate would have covered a bit of a multitude of errors in that this would cover over
It's
that
got
hole.
enough that if I had messed up on the hole, that would have
Right.
covered it. Now, this is a very fancy gadget. Tell me about this.
Well, this is a different type of shower valve that would show you actually the temperature that's being delivered out of the shower head. Now, you can see that by my hand, it's raising the temperature coming out. And this tells you before you get in what that temperature would be.
So there's really no danger of getting
Right.
burned in the
And
hot
this-
water shower, yeah.
This shower valve, like any shower valve, should be set with a limit stop to avoid any water over 112 degrees coming out of the shower head. So this would mount right here.
That's the temperature part of it. Very handsome.
Okay, then we have our shower head, one other wall, and we've got a finished appearance.
Okay, I better get the other wall in place. There. Okay, that does it. About an hour and a half's work, and we've got a beautiful new shower. 4 pieces to it, that's all that we had to put together. And it's durable, and it's easy to keep clean, as I understand it. Okay, Richard, all you've got to finish is the drain cover on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go see how Norm's doing with the roof shingles outside.
Okay.
Thanks again.
I'll see you.
Hey, Norm, you getting a head start on us there?
Yeah.
This is one job that we should leave for the professionals, and I thought we'd talk with a pro and get a few tips about finding out how to buy a roof and how it's done properly. What kind of a roof are we dealing with here?
Oh, Bob, this existing roof is an asphalt shingle roof. It's probably about 15 years old, and this type of shingle has been around for about 75 years. But in today's technology, we even have shingles impregnated with fibers, man-made fibers, in this case fiberglass.
Yeah, to give them a longer life?
Longer life, yeah.
Well, when I'm trying to get a subcontractor to put a roof on for me, I'm always curious, how does the guy figure out the cost of the job?
Generally, everything is figured in squares.
What's
and
that?
A square is simply an area 100 square feet. Now, in a house like this, there's approximately 15 to 20 squares.
So 1,500 to 2,000 square feet.
That's right. And to do a re-roof, which is either roofing over the old material or new, it's about the same, about $75 per square, including labor and materials.
Okay. All right, why don't you give us a few tips about how the guy should be actually starting the job?
Okay, the first thing you want to watch out for is if he pulls up on the job and he has a 5-gallon bucket of tar.
Why is that?
Well, you don't need
needed
that.
some tar on the roof.
No, you don't need that much in a roof that's properly done. Almost all the flashing and everything takes care of itself.
Okay.
But the best thing for me to do is show you how we do it, and that'll give you a good idea of what to look for. First of all, in doing over the roof, we put a new drip edge.
All
which
along
is-
the perimeter?
Yeah, which is simply a piece of metal like this, bent down, and it gives the edge of the roof some extra support for the shingles.
Okay.
In this case, it's galvanized, and it also comes in aluminum. The shingles themselves, they're 3 feet long like this, and they come with 3 tabs. Now, what you do to start is you cut these tabs off, so that you end up with a shingle that looks like this.
And that's what's called his starter course.
That's right, and it has tar on the bottom, which is an adhesive which holds the shingles down so that in a high wind they won't blow up.
Okay, so all these shingles come with the tar already on them, and that's why the guy doesn't need to bring a bucket along.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, on the first course, you let it hang down over the drip edge about 3/8 of an inch, and you have to nail it at each end and about every foot in between. And on a roof that you go over, you use a nail like this, which is about 1.5 inch roofing nail,
Yeah.
galvanized roofing nail.
Okay.
Once this course is put down, we have to cut shingles so that the joints are staggered.
Why do the joints have to be staggered, Norman?
All right, the joints have to be staggered because you want to make sure, as you can see on this old groove, that when the water runs down here, goes in this groove, we want to make sure it goes on another full shingle before it comes to another groove.
Okay, you never want to have two grooves lining up,
That's right.
one ahead of the other one.
If you don't stagger the joints, all the grooves will be in the same place.
Okay.
So we start with a 3-foot, a full-length shingle here, and we nail that down the ends, and it's also important to nail it right over these grooves between the tabs.
So that it would never show on through another groove, you mean?
That's right.
Yeah. That way you don't want to see any nail heads anywhere on the roof.
Right. Then the next shingle is cut back 6 inches shorter. Now the manufacturers have come up with these little grooves, little notches that they put in
That's helpful.
every foot. And that automatically sets them off the 6 inches that we need to stagger the joints.
Yeah.
So you pull it up, slide it in, and down. Now, to set the shingle right, you bring it down to the top of the grooves of the shingle below.
Is that how you end up getting straight lines all across the roof?
That's right. If you follow the grooves fairly accurately, you'll end up with a straight roof. But what we usually do is snap a line about every 10 courses to make sure that the shingles are still going straight.
All right, so that if I hired somebody, I'd feel more secure if he were snapping a chalk line across the roof every few feet.
Right. Now, you bring these shingles, you keep staggering them back, and then we can start with the full courses, which just butt up, and it's full shingles from here the rest of the way down
The rest
roof.
of the way down up the roof in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the beginning at the bottom of the roof here. Where are some other problem spots on a roof?
Let me show you over on the other side. We have a couple little complicated areas. And one is a valley.
Okay, a valley is where one gabled roof meets another gabled roof at a perpendicular.
That's
That's
right.
what happens.
And we end up with an area here where the water will want to run down here. So you just can't put the shingles in there any old way.
Well, what we did at the Bigelow house was we had metal lining the valley, and then the shingles came up to them, the wooden shingles.
That's right.
That was pretty expensive.
But with asphalt, it's a little bit simpler in that you can put one shingle, you do what you call is weaving. Now this shingle comes up here now. So the next one must go over it, coming from the other direction, from the other side.
And it's called weaving because it's just like a basket weave, isn't it?
That's right. One goes one way, the other goes the other. Now, the important thing about doing this is that the nails don't end up right in this
the middle of the
line.
valley.
You should stay at least 6 or 8 to 10 inches each side, and also make sure that the shingle goes up from this valley line, goes up this way at least a foot. Make sure the contractor has to make sure he pushes it down tight and nails it in. Then you take a shingle and come from the other side.
And again, you're using those little slits,
Use those little slits to line them
in the
up
shingle to line them up.
and line them up with the tab. And we come from the other direction. Again, making sure that there's no nails right in the valley.
So that in the
And
valley
so
you do
forth.
end up with about 3 layers of asphalt shingle, right?
That's right, and the further out they go, the better it is.
Okay. So what's another problem area?
Another problem area is down at the other end of this roof, where you have the roof surface coming along and meeting a vertical wall. And there we do what is known as step flashing.
Well, why couldn't the guy just put one long strip of metal along there?
Bob, if a roofer wants to put a single continuous piece of flashing up the side of the roof, then you shouldn't have him do the job.
I should fire him, huh?
That's right. If he does that, there's a good possibility that the water would get between that flashing and come out under the roof. The thing you want to do to properly flash a roof is make sure that the water is always diverted so it comes out on top of the shingles.
Away from the building and always running on top of the shingle.
Right, now we take flashing and bend it like this. It's 5 by 7. And by putting this on top of the shingle like this and nailing it into the side of the house, if any water gets in here, it's going to run out on top of this shingle.
Then where does your
Not
next
underneath
shingle
it.
go?
Then we put the next shingle over it so you don't see that flashing. And there should be no problem at all. So now when this shingle is nailed down, we put another piece of step flashing, another
Over
shingle,
it.
and so forth all
And
the
you
way up the
continue to
side.
stagger. Okay. Well, Norman, you're doing this on a contract, and I'm probably taking up all your time and messing up your profit, right?
Well, as long as you're willing to pay for it, Bob.
Okay. And it's getting too cold in here anyway. I thought I'd go inside for a few minutes and warm up with a wallpaper steamer. Well, I'm glad somebody got the kettle started. What you're looking at here is a rented piece of equipment for steaming wallpaper off. And this one in particular is gas-fired. You can also get electric ones, but I just prefer a gas-fired kettle. All it does is it's got a flame underneath here and a tank of water in here that's producing steam. It always has a gauge that tells me how much water I've got inside it, because you never want to operate one of these things when they run dry. Then the steam kettle is connected to this steaming plate by about a 10-foot hose so that you've got a good amount of space to work with. And usually the best tool to work with is a flat knife such as this, about a 4-inch one or sometimes a 6-inch one if you can find one. It also comes, the rental equipment comes with a smaller piece that you can screw onto the hose right there. And this is real handy for getting into areas like between door jambs and the corners of rooms and so forth. But for the bulk of the work, we want to use the big plate. Now, before we can really show you how it works, we've got to turn it up a little bit. And it does get a little bit noisy, but that will really get the steam going. You put it anywhere, wherever you want to start on the wallpaper. Let it sit there for about 30 seconds to get the paper loose. We have an easy situation here because nobody ever painted over the wallpaper. In a situation where there's paint on top of wallpaper, you might decide you've got a bad headache, because sometimes you have to use some sort of a solvent to spray on, which will break down the paint. That isn't quite enough. If that could stay on there for another 10 seconds or so, it'll get the paper real loose. One thing you always want to keep in mind when you're steaming in a room is that it's good to have an open window, because sometimes, especially if you're doing it in the winter, if you've got a closed-up room, I've heard of some people actually losing a ceiling. But anyway, as you can see, anybody can do it. It's the kind of job you could hire a couple of high school kids to help you out with. And it's also hypnotic. You could spend all your time doing it. But let's talk about something else for just a minute, because we don't have too much time left today. As I told you, I wanted to get into the budget in this program. And if you recall, we said we were starting out with $25,000 for all our renovations. We're into our 4th week of work here. We have spent $6,000 on Norm and other subcontractors. We're committed to that amount so that we've got another $19,000 to spend on our improvements and about 9 more weeks to go. Of course, this doesn't take into consideration my own time, what we're calling sweat equity, but we're still feeling pretty confident that we can do all right. Next week, we're going to be laying a floor in the garage, and we're going to be patching plaster and doing all sorts of things, and I hope to show you how to hang sheetrock then. Until next week, I'm Bob Vila for This Old House.
This Old House is made possible by a grant from Owens Corning Fiberglass Corporation, manufacturers of residential building products.